Welcome to the Job Ready English podcast. Listen to inspiring stories, successful strategies, and the latest news that affects you. JobReadyEnglish.com, helping international students succeed. Subscribe for weekly videos, podcasts, and newsletters to help you find a job in the UK.
Hi guys, Mike from Job Ready English. What follows is the first recording for our new Job Ready English podcast. It's with one of my former clients, Winnie, who I coached in 2015. She's since gone on to work in investment banking and she's been working there for over 5 years. This is a long form conversation, but it's absolutely crammed full of loads of tips. She covers loads of great topics, including a typical day in investment banking, her journey finding a tier 2 job, advice on getting offers, her top 3 skills to develop, cultural differences between working in the UK and Asia, and the one book she recommends you read. Let's go. Hi Winnie, good to see you.
Hi Mike, how are you?
Yes, I'm really well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you've been super busy.
Yeah, it's good. It's weekend, right? So yeah, that have spare time.
So thanks so much for joining me on the first series of interviews, which is called If They Can, I Can, which really is just an opportunity to, boys, I just saw them all. We have a new cat. There's a cat,
Right.
the cat's on the table. So in this new video series of If They Can, I Can, which is basically an opportunity to interview international students and people who've been through, kind of come through against the odds and are now, successful and happy, and to reflect on your story, so then other people can watch that and kind of think, oh cool, like that wasn't luck, or you weren't just chosen, you worked super hard. Yeah. So I'd like to start off, if I may, take us back to, tell us what you were like as a young girl, Winnie. Sort of growing up, were you what were you interested in? What did you do?
Sure. So I'm from China, southern China, which is a small city. So unlike those people who get used to living in big city like London or Shanghai or Beijing, I live in a coastal city in my childhood. And just like all the typical, Chinese families, I worked really hard when I was a kid. When I was 6-7 years old, my parents sent me to study English, and then also, study a lot of activities such as, playing piano, dancing, singing, and all that. And then when I get into the junior high school, junior middle school, I wanted to kind of understand a bit more about the countries outside of China. So I said it to my parents that I wanted to go abroad, and they really support my idea. And then at age 16, I came to UK for my high school study. And I've been in UK for over 10 years now. You've ended up, so you now work in investment banking. When did you decide, or when did you think that you wanted to go and work in investment banking? Was it always something you wanted to do, or was it just something that developed, for example, while you're at university? I think it kind of related to my background as well. So my parents are actually both working in banking industry, as well as all of my relatives. They're all in banking industry. So when I was really young, I kind of know that what the banking industry is like, and I really like the fast-paced environment. I feel that this is something that I would enjoy doing. And so that's why when I get into university, I choose economy as my major. And also when I was in university, I found out that I'm really enjoying dealing with numbers. I'm a more mathematical person compared to someone else who might be more interested in writing an essay, etc. So that kind of made me think that investment bank might be a good place for me, because I got to deal with numbers all day, and it is a very fast-paced environment as well. And obviously I can very close to this industry since I'm a child, who also give me a better insight of what the industry is like. So yeah, that's why I choose investment banking industry. It's great. Just 1 second, Winnie, I'll just cut across there. Do you mind if I mention your university and the institutions where you work, or would you rather keep it non-specific? I don't mind.
Okay.
I don't mind for the university education is good. Yeah.
University is fine, but don't mention the bank.
Yeah, correct.
That's cool. That's fine. So you said to me you studied, so your bachelor's in economics, is that right?
Yes.
And where did you study that?
I study at London School of Economics.
Yeah, and then you went on, you also, so right, did you study a master's there as well, or you left straight from the bachelor's? Yeah.
Yes. I also study master degree at LSE, major in real estate economics and finance.
Of course, wow. It seems like it's obviously a long time ago since we worked together. It's just, I can still see you in the auditorium in LSE with that really lurid purple seats.
Yeah, how time flies. It has been 5 years since I graduated from uni. Yeah.
Gosh. So let's kind of fast forward and then we'll go back. So just tell us a little bit, like, what are you currently doing? What's your current role? I know that we know that you're working in a top tier investment bank. Tell us about your day-to-day role and what you're doing, because you just mentioned you've recently moved teams.
Yeah, so I currently work as an equity product controller at an investment bank, and my day-to-day is basically covering the reporting and analyzing the profit and loss for the equity traders. So if let's say if the stock price move a lot in a day, they might lose or gain a lot of profits, a lot of money. So then I would need to analyze what is driving their profits or loss and report it to senior management and also regulator. It is a very interesting role because it is very mathematical focused, and I deal with numbers and Excel spreadsheets all day, which is really interesting.
It's fantastic. And what's your kind of, I know obviously we've spoken about how strange it is that you're working at a new team and you're working remotely.
Yeah.
But kind of give us a bit of an idea about your hours so what's a typical working day? When would you start? What would you do, and when would it end?
Okay. So my hours in general is around 10 to 11 hours per day. I usually start from 8:30 in the morning. So during the day, I will receive the profit and loss estimate from the traders, and I would analyze and report these profit and loss accordingly. And there are some ad hoc queries from the internal stakeholders as well, because investment bank it is a very large organization, so you got to deal with people that not just in your team but also in different regions and covering a different business. So we had these conference calls and dealing with all the queries and resolve them. So, and then it will come into the late afternoon, which we will have these end of day tasks that we need to complete before we can actually log off. My day usually ends around 7 p.m. On the day. Then I don't normally have to work extra hours after that, and I never work on weekends.
Okay, so it's quite intense. You know, you're sort of working that 10, 11 hours a day, but when you're done, you're done. So there's no checking emails, there's no kind of emergency calls at the weekend, because you're also working based upon the markets.
Yeah, exactly.
When they're open. Okay, that's fantastic. So let's just rewind a bit. So I'll go back to when you're just finishing up your masters.
Sure.
LSE. So let's sort of talk about the journey. I mean, you've been in the UK since you were 16. You were quite intent on going into investment banking. So I'd really just love to hear it really from your perspective. What was your engagement like with investment banking and trying to develop and get into a role, both in your bachelor's and your master's? If you could just walk us through that journey.
Sure. So I have been applying the internship programs in investment banks since I was doing my bachelor's degree. So in my first year, I was applying for spring internship. but there was no success. So on my second year in my bachelor's degree, I was applying for the summer internship programs in the investment banks, but unfortunately I didn't get in either. So it is not very easy for me at the beginning to try to get a role that I want. But on the third year, so on the final year of my bachelor's degree, I applied for internships, and I got a role in Deloitte, which is an audit role in Hong Kong. And this is my first proper internship. But then I found out that I wanted to stay in UK, and the role is actually in Hong Kong. So I did a master in UK, and I started to find a full-time jobs in UK. However, I found that it was very difficult to apply for full-time job in UK without having an internship here or having like relevant experience here. So I didn't get any job offer, only full-time roles, but I did get a role in I did apply for off-cycle internship in the investment bank, and I finally got a job, and that's how I started to work in UK.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe if somebody's listening, because you're a very intelligent, very well-spoken young woman, your English is basically fluent, and you've been in the UK since 16, and also you were at LSE. So I think a lot of people maybe would be surprised at how difficult you found the process and trying to find a job. Was that also the case with your classmates and the people that you knew?
To be honest, it is. I think it's particularly difficult for international students. It's probably because we don't have the right skills to find the jobs, and also we don't have the right information at that time. For example, we don't know when it is the best time to apply for jobs and what kind of information we need to give to the company to make our CV, for example, outstanding and to succeed in the interview. So I think it took me quite a long time to find out what is the right skills and how to perform well in the interview. It's not really about my technical or theoretical knowledge. It's mainly on the soft skills side, on the interview skills, etc.
Yeah, and we worked together, and you were really kind enough to share a testimonial about that. But I'm really interested, can you reveal what other resources that you used? Did you use the career services? Were you looking for stuff online? How did you go about finding these jobs and applying for these jobs when you were doing it yourself?
So I find that when I was applying job on my own, I feel that as I say just now, I don't think that I have the right skills or the right information to help me to get the interviews or even succeed in an assessment center in the interview. I have been to many interviews, but I don't have good outcomes after I apply. So I did seek advice from senior fellow classmates as well, because they have done internships before, and I have such advice from the career center in my university, and they help improve my CV, etc. But even that, I feel that it's still not there. It might help me to get into the interview, or it might help me to get into the very first stage of my application process, but I never get the final offer. So then I kind of referred by one of my friends to go into a career service, to go to a career service company, and then there was a lot of career service, interview skills practice and assessment center practice there, and I think that really helped me to get into my final offer, because I really practice a lot, and I never be afraid to speak in front of people anymore, and that really helped me to succeed in my interview.
I guess something that really strikes me, listening to how confidently you communicate today, and your real, there's a certain, and of course that's born out of your professional experience, but when I guess I wouldn't include this in the interview, but I can almost remember how you were, and how you were very very shy young lady. Like, you were quite quiet. You were very, because of course you're quite a petite young lady anyway. So you were very sort of like, oh, is this okay? And to sort of to see that is, you know, it's just wonderful, and that's been really great. Just out of interest, I mean, do you still get approached by people today asking you to help them? Are you approached by international students or people from LSE and the alumni network to sort of assist them?
Yes, a lot. Yeah, I kind of like to share my experience as well, because I feel that at that time, if I have someone that is share that experience to me, it will probably make my life a lot easier to get a job. So yeah, I still kind of talk to a lot of international students nowadays and share my experience, and especially for those people who already got an internship but they wanted to get a return offer. They kind of wanted to understand what needs to be done to be outstanding among their peer groups, etc. So it's good.
I think what you just said there is really excellent. So let's just hone in on that. So you talked about helping people understand how to be outstanding amongst their peer group. So could you give us some more detail about that?
Yeah, sure. So if I just talk about investment banking industry, because I've never been in other industries, so I can't really speak for that. But for investment banking industry, I think one of the most important thing is to ask questions. I think it sounds very basic. Everyone tells you that, oh, you should ask questions when you don't understand, but it is the key. So when the junior members, when they get into a new role, they must be very scared. Oh, will I ask too many questions? Will they think that I'm not good enough so that I'm asking these questions? But asking questions is actually help us to understand our job, and that's how it makes us to work a lot better. And also, when I did my internship in investment bank, I kind of had a very big challenge. It is a cultural difference. So when I was in China, I worked in a few internships in a small bank. And I feel that the culture in Asia is you listen to your boss, you don't say no to them. They ask you to do ABC and then you have to do ABC. But in UK, this is very different. People encourage different opinions and they want you to look at things in a different angle. So don't be afraid to say, to question things. And always, if you think otherwise, or if you think you have a better idea, I think it's definitely useful to raise to the managers. And then you can discuss and find out the final solution. I think I managed to turn this challenge into a strength at the end. But I think that is very, very important. I think that is a key point or key skills that would make junior outstanding compared to their peer group.
We've just had a client who's just got 3 offers. One from an investment bank, one from a venture capital firm, and one from a professional services firm. Lovely young lady, much like yourself. We thoroughly enjoyed working with her, and of course, to do so during coronavirus has been quite spectacular. She's very pleased. But I just want to echo that, because I find the best clients that I work with are actually incredibly inquisitive. You know, you sort of give them the time, and I certainly, from a coaching perspective, I've always been one to say, like, I think something that I say quite a lot is like, do you understand? Do you have any questions? Would you look a little bit confused? Would you like me to repeat that for you? Because would you agree that I really love the fact that you covered the difference between working at a Chinese company and a British company?
Yeah. Because
a lot of, certainly East Asian students, they'll kind of sit there and they'll kind of be like, oh, teacher says this, teacher says that. And it's like, no. In order for me to be able to help you, you need to ask me questions so that I can understand you better. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think so. I think this is kind of a nature for the Asian students to just don't raise questions, because they think that if they raise questions, it's because they are not good enough. But it's actually not the case, because the more questions that you ask, it actually helps you better understand this. And my manager actually just said to me a few weeks ago, it is human nature to say, I understand, when I actually don't understand, because people don't want to tell people that I don't understand when other people already understand it. But for me, I think I always ask questions, even though the whole group, they understand it already, but I will raise it. I'm not a very outgoing personality, to be honest. I'm quite shy in front of like a lot of people, but I just feel that I just need to ask. If I don't, then I would just miss the opportunity to learn.
Yeah, and I always ask questions. I absolutely love asking people loads of questions and saying, how did you do that? What does that mean? Or, because I think it's just, you know, why the only person otherwise you're deceiving is yourself. Okay, cool. That was a fantastic tangent. We'll just sort of just return back. So let's sort of zero in, come back to, you know, those 5 years that you spent in investment banking. So there's some questions around this. What's been your biggest, kind of the biggest surprises for you working in investment banking?
I think the biggest surprise is the diversity of people, because before I went into investment bank, I thought, oh, those must be people that study finance, study economics, study mathematics in the universities, and I was always very scared to get into a UK firm when I was and now I think that I'm probably the only Asian in the team, but it's not the case. People are all from diverse backgrounds, and they are all from different countries. So for example, my colleagues are from different countries such as India, Poland, China, Japan, and New Zealand. So it is, in my team, we only got 10 people, and there was only one British in the team. And people are from diverse degrees. It's not just finance. So my colleagues are graduating from history, politics, and chemistry. So my manager was graduating from a chemistry degree, and the global head of my department was graduated from French business degree. So it's kind of irrelevant when people might think that this is irrelevant to investment bank, but it's actually not. As long as you demonstrate that you have required skill sets, then you can do this job.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point, because something that I still find is a really common misconception is people saying, look, I've studied economics, I can only do jobs related to economics, when the truth is, you know, top tier companies, they just want the best talent with the best skill set, and the degree is really is helpful, but not that important. It's not the first thing that people see.
Absolutely, exactly, and especially for the technical knowledge, you will get this knowledge on the job training anyway. So they kind of teach you from the scratch. They don't expect you to have like a lot of knowledge on this. For example, let's say if I'm working in equity markets, people don't expect you to have a lot of knowledge on equities already. They will train you in a job, and they will make you kind of understand more when you're actually doing a job.
Yeah. You don't go to the gym if you're already fit. That kind of, you know.
Yeah.
You go to the gym to get fit. What has been the biggest learning curve for you, or the biggest challenges that you faced at your time in these banks?
I think it would be to say no to people, because I think investment bank is a very demanding job. People reach out to you all the time. Traders will reach out to me, say, get ABC done. My manager will reach out to me, say, get XYZ done. And there's so many people reach out to me to do the job, but I have my deliverables during the day. I have deadlines. So being able to multitask is very important. But sometimes if there are too many requests, I kind of struggle to say no at the very beginning of my job. I kind of, because I feel it's a cultural difference. I feel that when I say no to people, that looks like I'm not capable of doing this job. But it's actually not. In this investment bank environment, people encourage you to push back when you think that you got too much, because then if the managers can reallocate the capacity and the workload so that someone else can pick up these requests, and all the jobs can get done efficiently. So this is something that I'm still learning. I try to kind of say no to people if I really struggle. So I think this is the biggest challenge for me. But it is again a very important skill set in investment bank, because you're not possible to accommodate everyone's requests, because there's so many different things to do during a day, and it is very difficult.
Yeah, that ability to focus on what is important to you despite the demands of those around us. Yeah. Yes. Everyone has an agenda.
Exactly. Everyone thinks their agenda is the most urgent stuff, but for you have your own priority. So this is something I still try to pick up and learn.
You and me both, Winnie. You and me both. Let's talk a little bit about English. I mean, anybody watching this will see, your English is very good, pretty much the same as mine. I mean, how important, I feel that this is a really big sticking point for a lot of students. So I just want to dive into this. I mean, how important is English fluency? How important is communication? I mean, where do you kind of draw the line in terms of being fluent and just being able to communicate when it comes to work in investment banking and reflecting upon the people that you've met from this diverse, different range of countries?
So I would say the fluency of English is important because you get to communicate with people and you need to talk to your team. And it can't be done without effective communication. But when I started to work in investment bank, I was worrying that I'm not a native English speaker. I worried that I don't want to speak in front of people. I don't want to talk to people. I just wanted to do my work. But it's actually not that case. So it is very important to, even if I'm not an English speaker, it's very important to not be afraid to speak English in front of people. And especially when your colleagues are all from diverse background, they are not native English speakers anyway. So it is important, but as long as you make an effort to communicate, it wouldn't be any issue. Especially for international students who already study degrees in the English-speaking countries, English wouldn't be a problem when they work in investment bank, as long as they speak more to people and they don't afraid to speak, and they make effort to be involved and engage in a conversation. I remember that when I started my internship in my very first investment bank that I worked for, I used to scare to speak because I saw my English wasn't good enough. And then there was this midterm internship review, and one of my managers was putting comments say, Winnie should be more vocal to the team. And that kind of prompted me to encourage me and motivated me to speak more and to raise opinions in a team environment. Even my English is not perfect. No one would say a thing about it. No one would judge it. No one would laugh at it. So then I kind of be more vocal, and it is all fine. It's great. It's not an issue anymore.
Is it potentially fair to say that sometimes students' reticence or maybe fear of engaging, speaking, sharing potentially stems from their education and maybe the way that they were taught, the way that maybe they would have been criticised when they were younger, or something that may come from an education system?
I think it's mainly because it is a different country and English is not the native language that we speak. So we kind of got this own fear already before we do anything. We kind of think that we can't speak English perfectly, and this would impact my work, so that I might just not speak. But it is not that case. No one would judge you because your English is not perfect. And yeah, it is more about don't be afraid to speak and don't be afraid to be involved and engage in a conversation. I guess probably in China, this Chinese culture and education, as you said, people don't really want to say something when they think that it might not be correct. But in Western culture, there's no such thing. People encourage you to speak, encourage you to raise different opinions, whether that might even that might not be the best opinion or best solutions, people will encourage you to speak.
别担心，别害怕. Yeah, I think it's very. Actually, I think you're right. I certainly found with Mandarin Chinese, it's very much about overcoming a fear, an innate fear of feeling silly. And the truth is, people are absolutely thrilled when you just try to have a conversation with them in a different language. And once you get over that, you realise that mistakes are, failure is feedback. It's valuable feedback.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. What's a big misconception about investment banking and the industry that you work in?
I think it is the work-life balance. I think people will think that in investment bank, you kind of work really long hours and you have no life. But in fact, people kind of encourage you to kind of go home as early as you can and get your work done efficiently. I have switched multiple teams in different banks, and there's no managers say that you should work very long hours or you should stay here to finish your job. As long as you can get it done, get your daily deliverable done and get your deadline done, people encourage you to leave early. And in my old team, we used to have this work-life balance program when each person in the team is allowed to take a 4 p.m. leave or take a 10 a.m. Or come in at 10 a.m. during the day. So yeah, I think this is something people think that in investment bank you work crazy hours, but people do care about the work-life balance as well.
I mean, what would you, so this could be to do with investment banking, this could also be looking back, you may have covered this, but what would you say are just 3 really important skills to have, or 3 skills that you feel that you've really had to develop over your time working in the industry?
Sure. Apart from the one that we just covered, I think when I say ask questions and all that is very important, but also teamwork is a very important skill set, especially for professional service firm and for investment bank, because we are all work in a team and we work with our colleagues all the time. So it's very important to be proactive in a team environment, and when you have too much to do, speak to your team, speak to your colleague and say, hey, can you please help me on that? And if you finish things early, it's very important to speak to colleagues and say, hey, is there anything I can help? I think this is a very important skills in investment bank, because people might think that, okay, I can just get my job done and then I can leave. But without the teamwork, it is not possible to get anything done. So I would say teamwork is a very important skill. That's why in the investment banking interviews, there's always question about, tell me a time when you work in a team, tell me a time when you resolve a team conflict. I was wondering why people always ask these questions, but it is very important. And other skills, I would say multitask. As I explained just now, we got a lot of different requests from different regions, and it is very important to know what your priority is, break down all of your tasks, and allocate them based on the priority. Then other skills, communication skills. So it's not just about communicating to people about work. It is also about know when to raise concerns to managers, to colleagues, because people want you to be comfortable in work. So if you are doing something that you think is not the right thing to do, or you are not feel really comfortable, it is very important to raise that to the managers as well, so that they know and they can help you. If you don't talk to them, they will think that you're fine with it and no one will actually help you to improve the situation. So I would say, no, don't be afraid to raise your concerns and talk to your managers whenever you have any questions and any doubts.
Yeah, I feel something that's really run through the entirety of this interview is your emphasis on being an independent thinker.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. we're coming to the sort of last couple of questions. These are more sort of kind of quick fire. So I guess you can build upon when people are reaching out to you. What tips do you normally give to people, to young students who are saying, "Oh, Winnie, how can I break into the industry? What do I need to do?" What would you say to them?
I think the most important thing is networking. I know every people say that. I know every people say to get into investment bank, you need to network with people. It's easy to say than done because people have different personalities. As I say to you just now, I'm not an outgoing person at all. I feel very struggle with that at the beginning because I feel that, if I reach out to people, what happened if they don't reply to me? What happened if they reject? What happened if they don't want to catch up with me? So I kind of have this fear in my mind. But every people say to me, you got to network with people because this is a very broad industry. If you don't network with people, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know what is the best fit for you. And also you want to know more people if you want to change jobs and you wanted to get into a completely different areas than you would previously do. So I kind of started to push myself to do that a lot more. So I recently just changed my job to a new team. And to get this opportunity, I actually messaged the person that I never interact with and say, "Hey, I know that your team is recruiting. Can I possibly have a catch up with you just to understand what your team is doing?" And it was very, very hard for me to make this first step. It was very hard. I was so scared that people would say, "No, I don't know you. No, go away." But people wouldn't say that thing to you. And don't get discouraged if people do say no, because they might be busy. It's not personal.
Yeah.
You can just find a different person and then just reach out to a different person. So then, because my proactiveness to reach out to people, I got this job. And the person that I reached out to is actually my current manager. So he was really, really nice, and he said, "Yes, we can have a catch up." And then in my very first catch up, he just told me what his roles is about, and then we had some 6 and 7 formal interviews after that. But because I had this initial catch up with him, I kind of know the job a lot better than other candidates.
Yeah, this reminds me of a really good saying or thought process to have, which is you already start with a no. So if you don't ask, the answer is already no. So to anybody who sort of goes, "Oh, but what if they say no?" I always say, they've already said no because you haven't asked.
Exactly.
So if they say no, then at least you know that it's no, and then you can move on to find someone who can say yes, right?
Exactly. This is so true.
Yeah, and I kind of, it does tickle me. I've certainly found that, fortune favours the bold. Fortune favours those who do seek out and ask, and what you said about not taking it personally, again, it's so true. It's building, just realising, and you said it, we covered it earlier when you were saying about saying yes and no to stuff. Everyone's got their own agenda.
Yes, exactly. They might be just busy. It's not just because you're not great enough if they want to. Yeah.
I mean, the chances are good is that if they say no and they don't know you, it has nothing to do with you at all.
Exactly. Yes. And to be honest, a lot of jobs in investment banks are get done by networking, because you network with people. That's the best way to get interview opportunities, rather than putting your CVs there and the HR might not put the CV in front of the business and they might never see your CV before. But by saying that, it's not, I don't mean that you don't apply for jobs. You also need to apply for jobs proactively. But at the meantime, if you do have these connections with people who already work in this industry, it's very important to reach out to them. First, to understand what they are doing, whether this is something that you are interested in. And the second is to see if they have this connection to connect yourself to the area that you wanted to go.
Yeah, I mean, just to build on that, a couple of the young ladies who I worked with, like yourself, who are now in the industry, they may be managers or working on some form of management. Actually, when I connected with them, one of their first messages would be, "I'm looking for somebody. So if you come across anybody good, please let me know." And it is just about networking. It's just about connecting with people, because also, trust is built upon relationships and interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree.
That's wonderful. Just 2 final questions, if I may. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten from somebody else since you started working in investment banking?
That kind of remind me when I left my very first internships, I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do, and my very first managers talked to me that we always welcome you to come back to this role that I had the internship with, but we actually encourage you to go to speak to more people, to learn more about other roles. So I think for junior people, it is very important to know what other people are doing as well, not just what your role is, but also what your peers are doing in their jobs. Because at the beginning of your career, you might not know what you want, or you might not know what best suits your strengths. But if you sit with someone, have a catch up, see what they're actually doing, what their day-to-day is like, you might find that this is a role that suits you more. So it is again about talking to people, not just stick on the areas that you're working on, but being open and exploring different areas until you find the best match for you. Because I think people will always want to do in a role that suits their strengths the most. For example, I am a very mathematical person. If you put me into a role that requires a lot of writings, such as compliance role, it might not be a good fit for me. But at the beginning, you might not know that you might end up in this role that you don't want. But if you don't talk to people, you can't actually go into a different roles that you actually really like. So it's all about exploring opportunities around you.
I guess my final question would be, what's something that is there anything that you would, any book that you recommend, any program, anything that you feel has really helped you along the way in understanding the industry or getting a grasp of it? Anything that you recommend in that sense?
I think for that, I do have a book to recommend, but I actually forgot the author. It is called Strategy to Succeed. It is a very good. I'll get back to you on that later.
That's okay. I'll Google it for you.
Yeah. So it is a book written by a senior leader in Morgan Stanley. It basically teaches you how to communicate with people, how to find a sponsor when you get into investment bank, because you kind of need a sponsor which will speak in front of you when you are not in the room, for any promotions and for career progression, which is really, really interesting. And also the tips and skills for the interview and for switching jobs as well. But I will get back to you who is the author for all of that.
No, that's great. I hadn't heard of that. I'll be sure to look it up. Well, look, Winnie, thanks so much for your time. That's all of my questions. I think everything that you said has been incredibly helpful. It's been really thought-provoking, actually. So yeah, and then we'll leave it there. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mike.